waliwo ensonga z'endowooza nti mukyala Mpanga zaalesa asomesezza era kitukakatako okuzitambuza mu maaso, naye njagala nzoogera abantu bangi nnyo okusingako n'abali wano bazitegeere. Ensonga zino ziri mu nsonga z'ebyobufuzi n'obukulembeze, politics and leadership. If you analyze Mrs. Mpanga's life, you will see that a common thread runs through her politics and her leadership. She was a teacher, she was a mother, she was a leader, and a fighter for women's rights. She was a woman, a Muganda, a Ugandan, an East African, and an African. And she wore all these with distinction, ease, and a certain degree of elegance. She never ever let any hindrance, any encumbrance hold her back. She always did her best. In her leadership and in her politics, Mrs. Mpanga stood for very simple principles: loyalty, commitment, love for country, and service of others above self. If all the leaders here present, listening now, and perhaps listening later, could take to heart one simple message: Mrs. Mpanga has stood for what leadership should be. I had the privilege of representing a leading politician who happens to be of the NRM persuasion. I was handling a legal matter for him, and after we'd handled the legal matter over a number of meetings, we also started having general conversations. And in the middle of one of the general conversations, he stopped and said, "But you know, there's something I've always wanted to ask you." And I asked, "What's that, sir?" And he said, "Why are you in FDC?" And I said to him, "Sir, there's something you've misunderstood about me. I'm not in FDC. I'm still in Kabaka. The loyalty that Mrs. Mpanga has imbued in us is what was misunderstood and misrepresented, fundamentally misrepresented, about what the Kabaka movement stood for. It wasn't about Buganda for Baganda alone, far from it. If it was, it wouldn't have sent Daudi Ocheng, it wouldn't have sent Sugra Namubiru Visram to Parliament. The institution of the Kawakaship was never an ethno-fascist or exclusionary institution. Never was, never has been. It has been an inclusionary and equitable institution, merit-based, that runs through our veins and which speaks to our souls in our native language. It's very unfortunate that as matters stand, it's taken several decades for people to understand what was being said in the 40s and 50s by the pioneers of true independence. It's now trendy to talk about decolonization. That is what those people were talking about then. That's what we're still talking about today, decolonization. Twagala okwefuga, decolonization. So Mrs. Mpanga, my mother and leader, has been the confidant of very many leaders in the kingdom and outside the kingdom. She has always been at the forefront of efforts of uniting Ugandans in our diversity. She has always been at the forefront of efforts in fighting for women's rights and empowerment. In all those things, you'll see a common thread: loyalty, commitment, love for country, and service of others above self. We pledge ourselves to continue that legacy. If you know as a leader that you've ever gone to Mrs. Mpanga's living room and had a conversation, trust that that conversation has not been repeated anywhere. The advice she has given you has not been repeated anywhere. It's our responsibility to do the same. Our living rooms will be open for you to come and talk to us. We seek nothing other than the betterment of our country, the betterment of our region. Not high office, not lots of wealth. We only seek and pray as Mrs. Mpanga prayed in the 60s, when politics had made her have to spend days in cold, wet England. We pray that you protect us and our families. We want to see our children growing up and marrying and having grandchildren. We pray that we die in our country. That is all. Dear Lord, hear our prayer. Mama, woman,
tweyanzizza nnyo abaana ba